Morning everyone. Um, what I've done is I put out a poll so everyone can sort of ask me a few questions, and what I'm going to do is I'm basically trying to answer one of the questions that I've put on my poll. What exactly what it is that you guys wanted to know, or you girls wanted to know about the motorized bike engine kits, or whether you wanted to know about the wheels or obviously the frames or whatever. So I've had a couple of comments that someone wanted to know a little bit more about the reed valve versus the stock. So what I'm trying to explain is that the best of my knowledge, anyway, like when it comes to reed valves, I have a few motorbikes in my garage, and they do have a reed valve set up on them as well. So if anyone's thinking about obviously getting a reed valve set up for their engine and you don't really know the basics of it, right? Basically, the reed valve, yeah, is a tiny little attachment that will go onto what the American people call a jug, or the actual say the actual cast part of where the piston goes in and out. Okay, and what this does is it allows the petrol and the fuel to atomize better, so internally you'll get more speed out of it. Okay, so say for instance where you have the actual stock engine itself, okay, it would just be like a normal basic stock sort of engine, like the actual kit itself, but it will be good enough to obviously get you down the road, and yeah, it'll be kind of quick or kind of fast. But if you really wanted to do like a sort of sport it up, then obviously the reed valve will be a definite sort of like improvement what you can do. But it does sort of come with a little bit of a snag. So you will have to maintain these a lot more than your average sort of stock engine. So if you, I don't know if you've ever had a reed valve like attachment before, but if you haven't, what you'll need to do is actually dismantle this thing after a few like times of use, maybe because obviously it gets overly used and abused in a way, whereas it's under a lot of tension and a lot of stress and a lot of pressure from the actual engine, because this little tiny reed valve thing does a lot of work. So inside the reed valve itself, yeah, you have tiny little flaps, okay, sort of like your little fingers. And then what happens is as the fuel and the air atomizes, these little flaps move, okay. So over a period of time, yeah, if these flaps, they might end up snapping or breaking, it could go into your engine, but it might not damage your engine as much. But you have a tiny little set of screws that obviously attach these flaps inside the reed valve itself. Now, if this screw goes inside your engine, it will definitely destroy your engine internally, seriously. So, like I said, there are so many different, obviously, pluses and minuses about these things, but even to get the reed valve set up itself, you can't just attach one of these reed valves to your actual, as the Americans call it, a jug, right? You can't just do that, because obviously, like, if say for instance you wanted to undo like where your carburetor goes, it's just a tiny little like hole sort of thing. No, it's not like that. You need to get a totally different jug set up, okay? Or like, I think us English we call it a barrel, okay? So obviously like where the piston goes inside the actual barrel or the jug, right? What you need to do is get a totally different setup, and it will sort of be like, I don't know if you've ever heard like a pit bike, or say like like a mini scooter sort of setup, or a dirt bike. Then they already have like the actual reed valve components that are already put on there. So as if you wanted to upgrade, obviously take off the basic carburetor, then you can take that basic carburetor off because it's got the 4-pin mount holes. And then once you take that off, you can obviously mount the reed valve kit on it first, and then go straight from the reed valve onto the new carburetor. And yeah, you will see a massive improvement on performance. But these things here, they take a lot more maintenance. So if you are going to be riding your bike around in the dirt, and obviously like the sand, and like say if you like taking it off road, yeah, then you will need to obviously clean your carbs, clean your reed valve, clean your whole engine, and it's all about maintenance at the end of the day. So I wouldn't agree with obviously like using this if you are not going to like obviously tidy your bike and clean it up and make sure it's always nice in working order. Because say for instance if you are constantly abusing this with the amount of times that you rev your engine, them little tiny fins, they are going to be moving like crazy. Okay, so literally just don't abuse your engine. Just like if you want to go racing or whatever, yeah, just be very careful that obviously if these fins do snap, they can end up flying back into your engine, being sucked through that reed valve, and obviously it like bypasses the carbon straight into your engine. So this thing can actually like destroy your engine, so be very, very, very careful. All right. The stock engines itself, they are very easy to work on, very easy to strip down. There's so many different videos on the internet as well if you wanted to say like take one of these little things apart. it's a very simple engine to work on. It's a two-stroke, and obviously like the nuts and bolts, it's simple to work on. You don't need a whole massive full tool set. You even get, say, like a couple of tools that with your kit as well. And like say your clutch removal tool actually comes with the kit, so that's a pretty good idea. I mean, if you wanted to say remove the clutch and then upgrade the pads, this is another little thing. Like when you actually get your pads itself, they come as basic, and the pads, like, they're not that great. They're really not. So I would have said a great improvement on your clutch is actually upgrading the pads. That's a good little start of an improvement. And obviously the hardware, make sure that you upgrade the hardware on your engines as well, because the hardware that you get, it's terrible. I mean, the metal only has to bend and snap just by looking at it. It's so brittle and fragile, because obviously it comes from like China, that they try and like say cut down on the costs of like the materials as well. So I would definitely upgrade with, let's say, stainless steel. 100%. Use a bit of stainless steel. It's hardened as well, so it's not going to break. And the threads, they're not going to like twist and bend and whatever. They're not going to snap. So yeah, definitely take out a lot of the actual hardware, and then just replace it. You can even use like say washers as well, stainless steel washers, everything like that. But say even like for instance, getting back to the reed valve itself, that like some of them come in plastic, some of them come in metal, some of them come in like other different sort of things. But I was like doing a bit of research as well, and what I would suggest as well is when you're actually putting your reed valve onto your actual barrel, or your jug as what they call it, right, make sure that you use a lot of gasket sealant material, so it's like it's not going to leak any air anywhere else, so obviously not leak any fuel out of any crevice or crack. And also if you're stripping your engine down, make sure that you use a decent sort of gasket material, so it's, and also like a decent sort of sealant. So I always use red hematite. Red hematite is amazing, and like my dad uses it on all of his old classic cars, and you know what, never ever once had a problem before. And with your exhaust as well, right? Someone else said that I wanted like a bit of an explanation for the expansion chambers towards the basic one. Okay, so basically with an expansion chamber, yeah, what you need to do is it creates gases, okay, to come out a bit more bigger. And obviously like with your actual carburetor, it allows more air to come into the engine as well. So imagine, think a bit like you have to think a bit like this, right? So if say for instance you got a tiny little exhaust, and it's only got a tiny little chamber, like a tiny little hole to obviously fire out the exit or exhaust exits. So then what's going to happen is obviously if it's only got that small little amount, then it's not going to be able to pressurize, and the back pressure from the exhaust is not going to be great. So an expansion chamber, right, is sort of like from the exhaust is not going to be great. So an expansion chamber, right, is sort of like a combustion chamber in a way. So obviously, like, think about it like this: if you upgrade your carburetor, yeah, and then obviously you make it so like a KTM sports carburetor, for instance, right? The second that you upgrade that, you're allowing more airflow into the engine, and obviously like when you get more airflow into the engine, it's going to rev a lot higher. So if you adjust on your carburetor, you have a carburetor setting like a screw, an idle screw. The second that you adjust that, you're allowing more fuel and air mixture into the actual engine, so you're going to be able to pick up a lot more speed. So once that you obviously adjust that, if you get yourself an expansion chamber as well, you're going to allow the actual like fuel and the air mixture obviously like to combust a lot more bigger, and obviously like that will internally give you more speed as well. So speed improvements as well is a big thing on these bikes, but it also leads down and it boils down to, even with the reed valve, whatever you put on these engines, don't, whatever you do, abuse them seriously, right? So that's the worst thing that you can do with these engines, is just like literally throttle them and thrash them about. Don't do that. Just take your time with them, wear them in properly. This is another thing I'm very, very serious about, yeah? If you're actually going to be using like one of these bikes, yeah, don't mess around with the engine. The engine has got to be like worn in properly. Yeah, sort of like the actual gaskets, everything like that can be settled down properly. Like even for instance the piston rings. Yeah, a lot of people like I've seen so many people as well. They say, oh yeah, but I've just basically like taken a picture of my piston ring. I want to show you this, and then like I've seen so many people showing me the tops of their pistons, and they look such a mess. Like they really do. The reason being is because number one, they're running rich. Number two, they're abusing it. Right, and number three, they're not using the correct, like obviously like the procedure of the braking in methods, right? I can't stress it anymore to anyone, yeah, because obviously like a lot of other videos will explain it as well. the proper correct way to break these engines in is after 4 tanks of fuel to oil mixture. Once the engines are broken in, then you can upgrade your parts, and obviously then you can run the engines for slightly longer periods of time as well. You can't just, the second that you get the engine, and obviously like you obviously put it onto the bike and you put the fuel tank on and everything, you just fill it up however you want to fill it up and then just thrash it on full acceleration from here to there all the time. No, it's going to damage it, it's going to break the engine, and then you're the one who's actually going to have to go out and buy another one. So yeah, even the bike as well, you need to maintain it, because if you don't look after your tools won't look after you. It's a very true saying, I'm being honest. So I mean, that's the best bit of advice that I can give everyone. All right, so I thought I could answer a few questions. Obviously, if I haven't answered it to the best of what like my ability, yeah, please comment down below, and then I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. All right, but any other ideas or any other things that you want me to mention in maybe the next video that I bring out, put it down in the comments as well, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also remember to share and like as well. All right, it's been wonderful talking to you as it all like it always is, and I want everyone to have a lovely day. All right, take care.